We're diving into a really fascinating area of thinking today. If you feel like you've been chasing success on a treadmill, always running faster yet never quite catching up to true fulfillment, then this deep dive is absolutely for you. We are plunging into a recently expanded, really comprehensive section of Rishi Khullar's book, Serving the System.
And this isn't just like an extra chapter. It's a complete overhaul of how we approach personal strategy.
Right.
Khullar has gifted us with what is, well, essentially a new operating system for living.
Yeah, it moves way past the last decade's obsession with brute force optimization.
Totally.
Exactly. For so long, the prevailing wisdom and, productivity and self-improvement has been built on this metaphor. Life is a machine to optimize.
Right.
We treat our schedules, our bodies, our careers like they're just broken machinery that needs perfect calibration. Find the friction, eliminate the weakness, control the output.
And Khullar fundamentally challenges that. He argues that the machine metaphor is not only stressful, but it's ultimately doomed.
Because life isn't a machine.
It's not. It's a living, adaptive, complex ecosystem. So the new core idea he presents is life is a system to ride. You don't optimize an ocean, you learn its patterns, and you ride the waves.
That's the key pivot we're focusing on. Our mission in this deep dive is really to shortcut your learning curve on this new system. We're going to try and extract the most high-leverage mental shifts and the immediate practical moves. The knowledge you need to start operating with capacity and alignment like today. We need to understand not just what he says, but why these concepts unlock these new levels of resilience.
And that transition is just so crucial because it takes us away from this brittle idea of control, the idea that we must dictate outcomes, and it shifts us towards a more robust capacity.
Control breaks.
Control breaks. It breaks when the economy shifts or when you face an unexpected health crisis. Capacity, on the other hand, that's the internal strength to handle whatever reality brings. And that makes it the bedrock of genuine resilience.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation then, right in Chapter 1, Searching the System. We've established that the old model, this optimization trap, it fails.
Yeah.
And I think we've all felt this failure. We set these rigid, specific goals, we make detailed 5-year plans, and we try to micromanage every single step. But why does this lead to so much exhaustion and anxiety?
Well, it leads to exhaustion because it's based on an illusion of linearity. It's just not how life works. Khullar points out that life is defined by chaos, by change, by surprise.
Right.
So when you try to force a chaotic system into, like, a linear spreadsheet, every unexpected event, a market crash, a sudden passion project, a major relationship change, it's not viewed as life happening. It's viewed as failure.
You're off the plan.
You're off the plan. So you spend all your energy battling reality, just trying to get back on track with the plan that was obsolete the moment you wrote it. And that creates this chronic anxiety because you are constantly trying to control variables that are, inherently uncontrollable.
So the surfer's mindset is the antidote to that.
Yeah.
The surfer respects the power of the ocean. They don't try to stop the waves or force them into a specific direction.
Absolutely. The surfer is a master of observation. They read the conditions. Where is the energy building? Where are the rips? They practice this subtle, really powerful positioning.
Yeah.
Understanding that, 80% of riding a wave successfully is just waiting for the right wave, not paddling for every little ripple.
And once they commit, they're not rigid.
Not at all. They ride dynamically. They are constantly adjusting, flowing, feeling the movement. It's a model for deep engagement with reality, not resistance to it.
I wonder, though, for the highly driven person, how do we prevent this surfing philosophy from becoming an excuse for, a lack of commitment? If everything is just a wave, how do you decide to stick with something hard for 5 years?
That's a critical question because this isn't about passivity at all. Surfing the system is actually about a higher commitment to the data of your energy and traction, rather than commitment to some rigid goal you set years ago.
Okay, so like with career pivots, that's a classic example he explores.
It is. The traditional model views careers as ladders. Step 1, step 2, step 3. If you deviate, you've fallen off.
Right, but Khullar suggests fulfilled people see their careers as these successive waves.
Yes, exactly. And success comes from pattern spotting. They notice these high-leverage signals. Things like, wait, every time I run this specific type of meeting, I get this tremendous surge of energy. Or
I keep being the person who gets asked to fix broken systems, even though my title is marketing manager.
Precisely. They aren't obsessing over their job description. They're observing where their energy intersects with genuine demand from the system around them.
So instead of just trying to climb the ladder and consult, step one, two, three, they recognize their passion for systemic problem solving when they see colleagues repeatedly burning out. They realize the true wave isn't the next promotion in consulting, but maybe a pivot toward something like product operations or systems architecture, where their core strength-fixing broken systems is the highest leverage move. They follow the energy and the demand, not the sunk cost.
You nailed it. And this is why Khullar introduces this concept of low-stakes surfing as a practical move. Instead of waiting for perfect clarity to launch a life-changing business,
You just test it.
you test a new project or environment with minimal risk. You gather data by moving and not just by thinking. This prevents that analysis paralysis. And the flip side is this crucial tool, the exit loop.
Oh, I love this idea.
It's so important. If a project or a relationship or a job feels stale or dead or persistently heavy, if it drains more than it returns, you create a ritualized way to stop. You consciously let that wave pass without the shame of quitting.
The power of that exit loop is recognizing that if you stay anchored to something that's dead, you miss the energy to paddle out for the next better wave.
Absolutely. And that immediately brings us to, I think, the biggest source of paralyzing pressure in modern life: purpose. Khullar just dismantles this in Chapter 2, recognizing what he calls the purpose trap.
Ugh, that feeling that there is a single, perfect, hidden destination, a noun that must be found before you can start living, it's paralyzing.
It creates so much unnecessary anxiety. If you haven't found the one true purpose for your existence by age 35, you feel like you're fundamentally flawed or behind.
So what's his rebuttal?
It's elegant, he says. Purpose is not a noun, it is a verb. It is formed through iterative action and feedback, not found through introspection.
So how do we spot this emergent purpose in the system? Khullar uses what he calls the usefulness pattern, which is just a fantastic practical lens.
It simplifies the complexity beautifully. Purpose emerges where three elements intersect. 1, usefulness, it genuinely helps someone or solves a real problem. 2, energy, you lose track of time doing it, the work itself charges you.
And the third?
And 3, demand. Others keep asking you to do it again. If you find something where all three of those overlap, you are in the flow of your purpose.
So the question shifts entirely. We go from, what's the cosmic mission I must find, to the highly pragmatic and action-oriented. Where am I currently being pulled into service in ways that genuinely energize me?
The accidental mentor example provides the color needed here. Think of someone who helps a few friends with their resumes and interview prep. They don't set out to become a coach.
Right, it just happens.
It just happens. The advice is useful, their friends land jobs, the mentor loves the puzzle solving, that's the energy part, and then suddenly they start getting referrals from people they don't even know. That's the demand.
Purpose emerges from that consistent usefulness. The identity of career coach was formed by the system's feedback, not discovered in a mountain retreat.
Exactly. It reclaims purpose from the realm of the spiritual guru and puts it into the practical reality of feedback loops. And speaking of practical feedback, that takes us right into Chapter 3, the deep dive on the energy audit.
Oh, this is so important. Everyone obsesses over time management, but you've never seen a productivity guru talk about the true scarcity, which is energy.
Toller is blunt about it. You don't run out of time, you run out of energy. Time is a linear commodity. We all get 24 hours. But energy is lumpy.
One good hour is not the same as one bad hour.
Not at all. 1 hour spent in a state of flow or deep focus is worth 5 spent dragging yourself through email while you're exhausted. The central mistake of the optimization trap is treating all hours as equal.
And the high leverage insight here is viewing energy as data. It's not just a feeling, it's quantifiable feedback from the system. Every task, every interaction, every habit either charges you, drains you, or just numbs you.
And if you aren't tracking that data, you are flying completely blind. Consider the corporate VP example he gives. She was miserable, convinced she needed to leave her high-paying finance job. She just assumed the entire job was the problem.
But it wasn't.
No. After doing the audit, she realized she felt energized by every client presentation and every strategic brainstorming session. Those were massive energy chargers. But writing the lengthy bureaucratic compliance reports and managing internal politics, those were catastrophic drains.
And what was her solution? She didn't quit the job. She outsourced or streamlined the draining tasks and shifted her role internally to double down on the client-facing, high-energy work.
Hmm.
Her satisfaction and her output soared.
Exactly. She improved her alignment within the job, which is often a much more powerful move than quitting.
That's the power of the energy balance sheet. The practical steps Khullar details are, I think, non-negotiable for anyone listening. For 1 week, track your day in 2-hour blocks using just 3 labels: energized, drained, or neutral numb.
Then you analyze the triggers. Who was I with? What task? When and where did this happen? This reveals the true cost and the true return of your daily activities.
And the final step is where the system design comes in. You have to create non-negotiable boundaries around your top 3 energizers and drainers. For instance, if large, unstructured meetings are a top drain for you, your boundary is, I will only attend meetings with a clear agenda and a stated deliverable.
You are using the data to build a personalized architecture of well-being, and this audit is so necessary because, as we discover in chapters 4 and 5, achievement itself can become this invisible addiction, masking a huge energy debt.
Right, the hidden cost of achievement. Khullar calls success a socially approved drug. This is where highly capable people get really stuck. They chase goals not to build something new, but to avoid the crushing withdrawal. The fear of irrelevance, the fear of stillness, the fear of actually feeling their underlying anxiety.
And workaholism, viewed through this lens, is often just confusing chronic anxiety for drive. The anecdote of the unhappy millionaire is haunting. He was this ruthless entrepreneur who sold his company for a massive amount and retired at 40. 6 months later, clinically depressed.
What did he do?
He immediately started a hollow, purposeless second company. Why? Because the striving had become his identity and his method of self-medication. The withdrawal from being important was just unbearable.
That's the power of what he calls the addiction litmus test. You ask yourself, if I stopped all striving, all professional output for 6 months, would I feel panic or would I feel relief?
And if the first response is panic, you are likely dealing with identity addiction, where your sense of worth is just completely tethered to external output.
And that ties perfectly into Chapter 5, the metric trap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are highly intelligent beings and we optimize what we measure. But if our metrics are faulty, we become hyper-efficient at living an exhausting life.
Totally. If you track salary growth above all else, you'll likely sacrifice time, health, and relationship quality to maximize that one metric.
Yeah.
If you track status or visibility, you'll prioritize flashy, visible work over the deep, meaningful work that often happens quietly.
The profound insight is that metrics are identity templates. Khullar suggests that what you choose to track silently shapes who you believe yourself to be.
Right. If your dashboard tracks how quickly you respond to every ping, your system is training you to adopt the identity of always available, which is inherently draining. The metrics we choose silently reward fast over deep, visible over meaningful, and reactive over intentional.
So the practical application is a total metric audit. What metrics are you currently tracking? Steps, likes, dollars, hours worked, and what do they silently reward? Then, the hard part, replacing them with internal qualitative metrics.
For example, swapping output volume for, did I feel proud of how I spent my attention today? Or replacing hours worked with, did I move at the pace of my body, not my calendar? This shifts the entire dashboard of your life away from external validation, which is the root of the achievement addiction, toward internal sustainable health.
Okay, so when we stop chasing those external metrics and we start listening to our internal data, we often confront pain and friction. And that brings us to part 2, starting with chapter 6, which redefines burnout. Khullar says burnout is emotional starvation, not just working long hours.
This is a critical distinction, especially for high-performing listeners who often wear long hours as a badge of honor. Burnout is less about the volume of work and more about the quality of the connection to that work.
It's about misalignment.
It is fundamentally about misalignment. Meaningless tasks, a lack of agency, unclear progress, or being socially disconnected.
You can work 60 hours on a project you believe in with a great team and feel energized. You can work 35 hours on a meaningless task where your contribution is ignored and feel dead inside. The emotional return on labor is what matters.
And the symptoms are clear. A sense of futility, emotional numbness like feeling unable to access genuine enthusiasm or even deep sadness, and a depletion that sleep, a vacation, or a weekend just doesn't fix.
So you don't need a break.
You don't need a break, you need to matter again. The core nutrient being starved is meaning.
That engineer leaving big tech is the perfect counterpoint. He had high status, a massive salary, and controlled hours at the tech giant, but felt disconnected. Just a tiny cog in a giant machine. He jumped to a mission-driven startup.
Where the hours were longer, the pay was lower.
But he could see the direct impact on users every single day.
The crucial variable was meaning and agency. As a startup, his voice mattered, and he could define success. To restore meaning, the practical application isn't just vacation, it's injecting clarity and agency. Asking, what small part of my role can I change or own entirely? And crucially, adding relational nutrients, co-work sessions, structured debriefs, and real celebration of progress to break the feeling of isolation.
That sense of internal meaning brings us to Chapter 7. The identity shift is the real career move. Khullar argues that every professional transition, even a lateral one, is an invisible pivot in identity. You aren't just changing tasks, you're changing who you are.
And this is why people fail. The shift from doer to leader or from obedient specialist to sovereign expert, it requires letting go of the old story. If you drag the old identity into the new context, you will fail.
This explains why promotions often trigger crises. You are rewarded for being the best doer, the analyst who caught every error. Now, the promotion requires you to stop doing that, to delegate, and to tolerate messy first drafts from others.
Right. You have to let go of the control and the validation that came from being the smartest person in the room.
The micromanaging manager anecdote perfectly illustrates this trap. She was promoted to team lead, but felt worthless if she wasn't solving the hardest engineering problems herself. Her old identity was the expert, and she kept trying to prove it, undermining her team and exhausting herself.
And the pivot only succeeded when she deliberately embraced the new identity. My job is to make others shine, not to shine myself. That required building a whole new capacity for patience and trust.
So the practical application is what he calls the identity shift map. First, you map your current identity. What makes you feel competent? What behaviors give you a sense of worth? Second, you name the new identity. What must you embody to succeed in the next chapter? Architect, coach, visionary. And finally, you build transitional rituals, new reward systems, changing how you spend your time, maybe literally dressing differently to signal the new role to your nervous system.
Now we have to confront the biggest emotional distraction, the happiness trap in Chapter 8. The pervasive cultural myth is that the goal of life is continuous happiness. Khullar argues that pursuing this guarantees chronic dissatisfaction.
Happiness is weather.
It's just weather. It's transient, it's volatile, and it's dependent on external conditions. Trying to cling to it is like trying to hold on to water. When you inevitably feel anxiety or frustration or sadness, which are normal human emotions, you interpret them as signs that you are failing at life.
The uncomfortable truth that the system mentality embraces is that growth feels like discomfort. Uncertainty, frustration, uneasiness, they aren't signs of failure. They are signs of expansion.
Right. If you are learning a complex skill or navigating grief or creating something truly new, you are supposed to feel the friction. The goal is to feel alive, which encompasses the full spectrum of vitality, not just to feel happy.
So the intervention then is to replace the goal of happy with aligned. You track vitality instead of mood. You ask, did I stretch my capacity today? Did I connect meaningfully?
And you use pain as functional data. Sadness is a signal that you care deeply about something you lost. Anxiety is simply unnamed uncertainty. You are evolving, not malfunctioning.
And evolution often involves destruction, which leads us right to Chapter 9. Breakdowns as invitations. When life falls apart, burnout, divorce, a financial crisis, it feels like a disaster. But Khullar argues these crises are often the only events powerful enough to force radical, necessary change.
A breakdown is the system breaking the illusion. It strips away all the buffers, the status, the income, the busy schedule, and it forces confrontation with the toxic environments or hollow pursuits that we were expertly ignoring.
He tells that story of the executive who got forced out of her CEO role during a merger. She realized that for 20 years, she had been wearing a mask of ruthless ambition to please her father. When the career mask was ripped away, she was forced to confront the person underneath.
That crisis was the only invitation she would have ever accepted to finally prioritize her health and write the book she always wanted to write.
So the blueprint for renewal is key. Don't rush to fix it. Observe the ruins first. What exactly fell apart? What illusion cracked? Focus intensely on what was unsustainable, the habits, the boundaries, the toxic relationships that couldn't hold your truth.
And then you can build forward deliberately. You create a ritual of renewal, you cut the dead branches, and you start the scary conversations that the crisis revealed.
Okay, moving into part 3, we shift focus from those external challenges to cultivating internal strength. Chapter 10 is foundational. Control is brittle. Capacity is resilient.
We've established that the illusion of control fails constantly. It's just exhausting to demand that reality conform to our specific wishes. Control says, I must make reality obey me.
But capacity is anti-fragile. Capacity says, I can handle what reality brings. The capacity mindset is about optimizing the self for adaptation, not optimizing the world for your comfort.
Right. When the inevitable surprise hits, a global pandemic, an economic shock, the person focused on control shatters, but the person focused on capacity adapts and grows stronger.
The example of the engineer forced into early retirement is so telling. He had rigidly controlled his health, his career trajectory, his finances, but a heart event instantly shattered that control. His focus couldn't be on regaining the status he lost, which was external.
He had to build new internal capacity, managing his fear, setting healthy boundaries, learning to find worth outside of achievement. He outgrew the need for control by expanding his tolerance for uncertainty and discomfort.
And to build this capacity muscle, Khullar suggests capacity reps. I love this idea. These are deliberate, low-stakes activities where you practice being uncomfortable, adapting your nervous system.
Yeah, like try a cold call you'd normally delegate, or speak off the cuff in a meeting, or start a new hobby where you are truly a beginner.
It's like nervous system conditioning. You are teaching your body that high-demand situations or a lack of expertise are survivable. You redefine success as, did I expand my ability to handle this situation? The goal is to become the kind of person who doesn't break when life doesn't behave.
Following this, Chapter 11 covers character as a capability. Khullar argues that character isn't some fixed moral trait you are born with. It is a capability, a skill forged through discipline and decisions made under pressure.
This is the cost test of character. It's easy to be honest or generous when it costs you nothing. Character is truly revealed when living by your values costs you comfort or status or short-term profit.
The executive who declined the promotion faced this. He was offered a massive title bump and raise, but it required two things that violated his core: working under someone he deeply disrespected and betraying a longtime colleague in the process.
So he made the painful, easy choice.
He did. He sacrificed the short-term status and money to protect his long-term integrity. That act was a capacity rep in character. He built the muscle of self-respect.
And the practical training methods are fascinating. Use pre-mortem drills before starting a difficult project. Ask, if everything went terribly wrong, what choices would I still be proud of? And set identity-based goals, like act in a way that earns trust, rather than just metric goals.
Now we turn to the pervasive modern threat, disconnection, which he covers in chapters 12 and 13. Khullar defines disconnection not as a flaw, but as a side effect of overstimulation. We are drowning in constant noise, notifications, and obligations, and it's causing our nervous system to dissociate.
We're living life on autopilot. The signs include getting through large parts of the day and not remembering half of it, or feeling nothing after achieving a major goal, or being busy but sensing that nothing you're doing is truly important. The drowning executive was so busy managing his high-volume life that he had become completely absent from it.
So the intervention has to prioritize presence. Practical moves include the touchstone ritual, setting a quick, non-negotiable physical anchor throughout the day, like taking 5 deep breaths before you open your email or check your phone.
And crucially, scheduling intentional stillness. 10 minutes where there is no phone, no task, no input. The goal isn't to escape, but to reconnect to the truth of your current experience.
And when we reconnect, we find joy. That's chapter 13. Khullar draws a very sharp line between pleasure and joy. Pleasure is a spike. It's sensory, short-lived, usually tied to consumption. Joy is a state. It's integration. It shows up when your actions, your values, and your relationships are all in sync.
The split self trap is what prevents joy. High performers often maintain this shiny, productive outer life while their inner world is full of yearning or doubt or unprocessed sadness. Joy disappears when the inner world and outer world don't match.
Right. Joy can show up in a hard moment, like having the courage to say no to a draining obligation, because that no brings internal coherence.
Joy is coherence, not comfort. It's the nervous system signal that your doing matches your being.
And that coherence requires healthy relationships. So chapter 14 gives us this biological ultimatum. Isolation is the new smoking.
And this goes way beyond just feeling lonely. It's a biological threat. Loneliness is recognized by the body as a stressor equivalent to physical harm. It spikes cortisol, it raises blood pressure, and it significantly increases the risk of stroke and heart disease.
Yeah, the research is chilling. A weak social life is as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
And the danger isn't the quantity of your contacts, it's the quality. You can have thousands of followers, but be functionally alone if you lack a core person who sees you fully and knows your inner landscape, your doubts, your aspirations, your struggles.
So the practical application is urgent. Check your social vital signs. Who knows what's actually going on in your life right now? Use the 3-2-1 rule. 3 meaningful, non-transactional check-ins with close contacts, 2 planned one-on-ones, and at least 1 in-person hangout per week. And rigorously audit your relationships for nutrient value. Is this person energy-giving or energy-draining?
Finally, we have to understand the body's role. In Chapter 15, Khullar confronts the addiction to rumination. You can't think your way to peace. Overthinking isn't deep analysis. It's often just rumination addiction dressed up as productive planning.
The mind is not a reliable ally when it's left unchecked. It defaults to spiraling, inventing threats, and replaying guilt. And many issues in life, grief, chronic uncertainty, identity transitions, are waves to be surfed, not puzzles to be solved. Overthinking just postpones the necessary emotional processing and healing.
So the intervention has to be somatic.
It has to be. Using the body to interrupt the mind's loop. Try a cold shower or intense movement like dancing to one full song or intense breath work. The point is a somatic shift that pulls the nervous system out of that rumination pattern.
And name the fear loop. Is this a real problem I need to solve, or is this just a thought habit I need to interrupt?
Exactly. Build a no-input hour daily, no phone, no book, no music, to defrag the nervous system. This emphasis on the body is validated in Chapter 16. Energy doesn't lie. Your nervous system is constantly reading microsignals, tone, pace, posture, gut feeling, faster than your conscious brain can process words.
Energy is truth.
Energy is truth, even when the words are carefully chosen to deceive or reassure. The executive example illustrates this beautifully. Her weekly meetings with the COO were always productive on paper, hitting all the metrics, but every single time she left feeling physically drained, tense, and anxious.
She was gaslighting herself.
Completely. Telling herself the meetings were fine because the logic was sound while her body was screaming danger. She eventually trusted the energy data over the surface-level interaction and realized the COO was subtly passive-aggressive and undermining her agency.
So the ultimate application here is for decision-making. Consult the body first. If your body contracts, a clenched jaw, a tight gut, rapid, shallow breathing, it's a no, or at the very least a pause. Stop overriding these instinctual somatic signals just because someone means well or the opportunity looks good on a spreadsheet.
Okay, part 4 is all about breaking the deep, invisible loops that keep the system stuck, starting with Chapter 17. Avoidance is the most expensive addiction.
Avoidance feels like protection in the short term, but it accrues this massive interest in the form of stress, fatigue, and resentment. It steals your future while pretending to protect your present comfort.
The founder who avoided the difficult co-founder conversation for 3 months didn't just delay 1 hour of awkwardness. He spent 90 days with rising anxiety, lost sleep, and misalignment that eventually cost him not just the co-founder relationship, but a key employee who was frustrated by the indecision.
Avoidance creates the bad place it's trying to prevent.
It does. The practical application is the 72-hour rule for avoided tasks. If you've put off a necessary task for 3 days, you schedule it, you script the first 2 sentences, and you execute immediately, regardless of the fear. You have to micro-expose yourself daily, check the dreaded bank balance, make the tough phone call.
Because action creates clarity, but waiting just magnifies the fear exponentially.
Then we address rigidity with Chapter 18. Surrender is not submission. The tighter we grasp for control, the less influence we actually have. Control is an illusion. Surrender is accepting reality as it is to achieve precise power within it.
Surrender isn't quitting or being passive. It's the clarity to draw the 2 circles. What you can control, your effort, your response, your boundaries, versus what you care about but cannot control: the market, other people's decisions, random events.
And most of our stress comes from confusing those 2 circles. We have to replace the mental pursuit of control with the tangible practice of cadence. Influence lives in routines, rituals, and rhythms, not rigidity. Voluntary surrender is power. Involuntary surrender, when the body or the market forces it, is crisis.
This all rolls up to the central tenet of system change in Chapter 19. Nothing changes until the system changes. Behavior is just the output. If the architecture of your life, your calendar, your environment, your relationships is set up for anxiety or burnout, your intentions will fail every single time.
So stop trying to fix your brain. Fix the architecture. Khullar emphasizes designing friction into bad habits: phone in another room, social media apps deleted, and creating default paths for right behavior: gym closed by the door, automated savings. You have to audit your systems weekly, fix the soil, not the plant. The goal is to make the desired behavior the easiest, lowest friction default.
And when the architecture is right, you achieve what he talks about in Chapter 20. Alignment is the only sustainable strategy. Misalignment, whether it's saying yes when you mean no or using strategies that violate your core values, is a hidden tax that creates massive drag.
And alignment creates lift. Khullar powerfully challenges the notion of grit as a universal answer. He says grit is overrated, alignment beats discipline in the long run. The alignment test is simple but piercing. If this endeavor succeeded exactly as planned, would I actually want the outcome?
And if the answer is no, stop.
Stop. The aligned don't need willpower. They need brakes to slow down their momentum.
So how do we know when we are truly aligned? Chapter 21 provides the signal. Peace is the signal. Peace is not the result of success, it's the diagnostic of alignment. If your plan gives you a genuine sense of peace, not numbness, not escape, but groundedness, it is aligned.
Use the body barometer. When you make a decision, notice, does my body soften or does it tense up? Peace is coherence, and coherence registers somatically. Your nervous system is saying, this fits, we can rest here.
Which is in stark opposition to the subject of Chapter 22. Urgency is a constant hijack of our attention, and it's often self-created. It's a drug that masks fear and prevents deep work.
Right. Real clarity whispers. The truly important things, the big life decisions, the meaningful creative work, the deep connections, they rarely arrive screaming. The things that scream often don't matter in the long run.
And the practical application for that: implement a 5-minute pause before acting on urgent requests. Khullar notes that 90% of false urgency self-extinguishes during that pause.
And use the 3 buckets rule. Is this truly urgent, just important, or is this just my ego or habit? And crucially, teach your team or contacts to own the issue, not escalate their anxiety to you.
Finally, Chapter 23 reframes one of the most common self-criticisms we hear. You're not lazy. You're misaligned. Laziness is not a character flaw. It is a signal. It's a misfit between your values and your tasks, or your energy and your environment.
You are too smart, too resourceful to willingly waste your life on the sofa unless there's a serious misalignment happening. So don't fight the resistance, decode it. Ask, what belief or misfit is underneath this inertia? Am I resisting the task because it violates my values, because I lack a skill, or because I don't feel safe?
And you can map the tasks you are resisting to a desired identity. I am the kind of person who enjoys solving complicated logistical puzzles. If the task doesn't map, you redesign the system or you delegate. Real strength comes from redesigning the system, not grinding your way through misalignment. Okay, we've reached the final section, synthesizing the deepest psychological traps Khullar explores, the subtle ways our own intelligence can keep us stuck. Let's start with a really provocative reframe in Chapter 24, anxiety as unspent creativity.
This is such a powerful concept. Anxiety is essentially misused imagination. Your brain, which is designed to innovate and strategize, is instead running these endless, catastrophic what-if scenarios. It's playing mental movies of failure rather than building things in reality.
And if it's channeled correctly, this capacity, the ability to project into the future, identify threats, and think systemically, becomes a strategic edge.
It does. The practical move is fear as fuel. You write down the anxious scenario, and then you channel that energy into designing pre-mortem counter strategies. The fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes useful. Anxiety hates forward motion. Creation uses that energy constructively.
And here's the trap specifically for our highly intelligent analytical listeners, covered in Chapter 37. Intelligence creates better prisons. Smart people stay stuck because they are too fast at rationalizing and constructing these airtight logical traps. Paralysis is disguised as planning or necessary analysis.
Right. They wait for perfect insight when the system actually demands evidence. So the solution is to interrupt the loop physically. Take action before you feel ready. Khullar advises making dumb moves on purpose, launching a bad first draft, making a less than perfect call, just to get evidence from the world instead of waiting for mental clarity.
Because your smartest thought might just be your most rehearsed, most comfortable limitation.
Exactly. And that over-reliance on the mind leads to Chapter 38. You can't think your way out of suffering. Mental clarity can explain your trauma, your grief, or your anxiety flawlessly, but explanation does not equal emotional freedom. Pain lives in the body.
You can analyze the narrative of why you're stuck, but your jaw remains clenched, your heart races. We need a somatic shift.
You do. Stop focusing on the story and name the sensation. Tight chest, shaky hands, tension in the gut. Use movement and breath to settle before solving. The addiction to insight is real. People constantly seek more understanding to avoid having to feel.
Now, on to goals and identity. Chapter 39 reveals why your goals sabotage you. What we chase is often what we fear we lack. If you are chronically striving for a massive promotion, it might be trying to fix an underlying feeling of unworthiness or powerlessness.
So the required shift is profound. Ask, what part of me is this goal trying to fix? And then flip the approach from lack to wholeness. Replace rigid external targets like lose 20 pounds or make X amount of dollars with energetic directions like feel vibrant and alive or engage in meaningful service.
Because growth without presence is just a sophisticated escape from the present moment.
And the dreaded imposter syndrome gets a fresh analysis in Chapter 40. It's disconnection. The feeling of being a fraud comes from succeeding at things that are misaligned with your internal truth. Your external performance, your mastered skill set, has outpaced your internal authenticity.
You mastered performance, but you never mastered belonging.
That's it. So the healing requires integration. Audit the gap. What do people admire about you, and what part of that feels like pure performance? Anchor your identity and your values. Am I aligned enough? Rather than external validation, am I good enough?
And Chapter 43 brings us to the hard truth of worth. Value without title. Many of us were only shown love or worth for being useful or achieving. When the title disappears, the project ends, the nervous system loses the mirror that reflects our worth back to us. We panic because we confuse our role with our reality.
The practical move. Name who you are without achievement. List 5 qualities: kindness, curiosity, loyalty, creativity, that have nothing to do with work. And perform what he calls mirror moments, saying aloud, I matter because I exist. It is uncomfortable because it forces the nervous system to let go of the armor it used to feel safe.
Moving to building sustainable systems, Chapter 25 is essential. High standards without self-hate. Sustainable excellence doesn't come from internal cruelty or self-abuse. It comes from self-respect.
We have to separate standards from identity. You can fail a project or perform poorly on a task without being a failure as a person. Replace shame with curiosity. What part of this process is learnable? What part of this system broke? Discipline is consistency. Cruelty is punishing yourself for being human.
And when logic fails, when you know you should exercise but you just can't, Khullar recommends ritual. That's Chapter 26. Rituals bypass the tired, argumentative brain by creating default momentum.
A ritual is a conscious pattern with a purpose. Design pre-action rituals. If you want to write, the ritual is putting on a specific pair of headphones and opening a specific document. If you want to exercise, the ritual is lacing your shoes. Anchor big habits to small, conscious rituals. The body understands ritual when the brain is too tired to engage in willpower debates.
And remember the lesson of Chapter 27. Success is a team sport, even when alone. The myth of the lone genius is debilitating. High performers outsource willpower by relying on systems, coaches, and artificial accountability.
Use that external scaffolding. Create artificial accountability. Tell a friend you'll send them a screenshot of the completed task by 9 a.m. Outsource decision fatigue, automate your breakfast, pick one workout fit for the week, conserve your limited decision-making energy for high-leverage challenges.
Energy is the new currency. That's Chapter 31. Protect the soil that makes creativity inevitable. That means blocking off the morning fortress, no email, no meetings, no reactive tasks during your natural peak creative hours, say from 8 to 11 a.m.
Right. Align your deep work with your natural energy curve, not your calendar's demands. Because the system is the soil. That's Chapter 32. You inevitably fall to the level of your environment. You have to assume you'll be lazy, distracted, and easily tempted, and design your physical and digital environments to make the right action the default.
Ruthless calendar gardening.
Exactly. Treat every recurring meeting like a weed that must be pulled or a seed that must be nurtured. And don't flee from difficulty. Embrace the power of friction, Chapter 34. If everything in your life feels smooth, you are coasting, not growing. Friction-hard feedback, uncomfortable questions, disagreements is the essential pressure that shapes you, clarifies your boundaries, and provides the feedback necessary for adaptation.
They also have to address the dark psychology of staying stuck. Chapter 35. The real reason you're not changing. You stay stuck because the old behavior offers a hidden psychological payoff. Avoidance protects the ego from the judgment of failure. Chronic busyness protects you from the emotional discomfort of stillness.
And to break the loop, you have to expose the payoff. Ask, what am I getting from staying the same? If the payoff is, I don't have to risk rejection, you must consciously create a new, healthier payoff loop, maybe through public accountability or immediate celebration of small exposure steps.
This leads to chapter 36. You're overloaded with illusions. Overwhelm often stems not from low capacity, but from internal conflict. You are trying to serve competing, contradictory identities simultaneously. The ruthless business closer versus the soft present parent, the dedicated artist versus the financially conservative realist.
The only way out is clarity. You have to inventory those inner conflicts and choose a primary operating system, the identity that genuinely serves your next chapter. Rest won't solve conflict. Clarity and conscious choice will.
Finally, we revisit relational health in chapter 44, why you keep picking the wrong people. Khullar provides a powerful mechanism here rooted in early experience. You are drawn to what is familiar, even if it hurts, because the nervous system associates that pattern with the emotional flavor of your earliest relationships.
It's powerful stuff. If chaos or distance defined your childhood, your nervous system may call emotional unavailability chemistry. You may constantly pursue partners who require fixing or partners who pull away, unconsciously trying to solve the old riddle of your childhood by succeeding where you failed before.
So to rewire that, you have to map the pattern. What was the recurring emotional tone of your past 5 important relationships? Which early life figure made you feel that way? The next time you feel that fast, intense chemistry, you pause and ask, is this genuine alignment or is this compelling compulsion? Am I seeking a partner or am I trying to solve an old riddle?
Emotional recognition is the first step toward freedom.
That was an expansive and I think a necessary deep dive into Rishi Khullar's new section of Surfing the System. The fundamental takeaway is so clear. Stop treating your life as a machine to be optimized under the illusion of control. It is an adaptive, complex system, an ocean that demands observation, flexibility, and alignment.
And the most potent insights are those internal shifts. We have to transition our metrics from external status and output to internal health, energy, and capacity. Recognize that chronic resistance, burnout, and fear are not flaws. They are critical signals of misalignment or unaddressed psychological payoffs that the system is trying to flag for you.
Your body and your energy curve are your truth. True freedom emerges when you cultivate the capacity to handle whatever life brings and when you shed the strategies, the roles, and the systems that violate your core being.
And if we tie this all back to the emotional core, the ultimate goal Khullar presents is coherence. Joy is the signal that your doing matches your being. And true rest, as he addresses, is the profound absence of the need to strive for worth. You are allowed to exist without proving your value.
We covered that happiness is a side effect and that growth feels like discomfort. So here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on this week, building on this entire deep dive. Khullar suggests that the pursuit of constant happiness guarantees chronic dissatisfaction. If you completely delete the goal of being happy from your personal architecture, what specific metric capacity, alignment, coherence, or peace becomes the most reliable compass for a life well lived? And why might tracking that metric feel initially harder or scarier than just tracking success? Think about what you would have to surrender to prioritize it.